This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and colder, it can really take a toll on how we feel. Maybe that means calling your grandma, writing a letter to your friend, finally grabbing lunch with someone you haven't seen in a while. And just like reaching out to a friend, starting therapy can take a bit of courage. BetterHelp makes it easy to start therapy. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist based on your needs and preferences so you can focus on your growth and goals. Not happy with your match? You can switch therapists anytime with no hassle. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether that's checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/PFF. That's betterhelp.com/PFF.
All right, the Cardinals and the Seahawks. This game was over very quickly. Seattle wins this game 44-22. Their top 5 graded players that we had. Linebacker Tyrese Knight at the top of the list with a 93.9. Wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, like he is every week, at the top of this list with a 92.3. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp, 90.6. Running back Kenneth Walker, an 84.7. Running back Zach Charbonnet, an 83.1. And then Sam Darnold with a 76.9. On the Cardinals side of things, tight end Trey McBride, an 85.4. Edge rusher Jordan Burch, a 79.4. Edge rusher Josh Sweat, 78.8. Safety Jalen Thompson, a 72.9. Offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr. rounding it out at number 5 with a 72.3. And then Jacoby Brissett with a 47.2. This game was always going to be really tough, especially with the injuries that the Cardinals had. Max Melton was out. Will Johnson was out. It was just them being as depleted as they were in the secondary specifically was always going to be a major issue because you were going up against one of the best passing attacks in the NFL, I will say. So this is a tough one, but what was your stat that told the story here?
Look, I mean, the fun part about this review is we only have to really talk about half the game. So we're going to even split that half into another half for each of us. I'm going to go listen.
You are right.
I think, I think the two signature plays in this game to me are really the 2 strip sacks from Tyrese Knight that ended up as DeMarcus Lawrence touchdowns. And the 2 plays, it looked like the second one to me looked like an instant replay of the first one. That's what I thought it was for a second. And then it was just like, oh, no, this happened again. The ball just knocked out of Jacoby Brissett's hands. But the first half pass rush for the Seahawks, just outstanding stuff here. 84.3 pass rush grade in the first half. 5 sacks, 2 of them the strip sacks that led to fumbles. How about a 61% pressure rate as a team in the first half and a 53.8% pass rush win rate? That's really, you score. Look, it's hard enough to stop the Seahawks offense and everything they got going on. They had a good day running the football too, especially in the second half, milking the clock. But you score 2 defensive touchdowns, especially like that, the ball game's pretty much over by the time, especially the second one comes around. So credit everybody in that Seattle front 7, including Tyrese Knight, my most impressive guy with the big day. Obviously, the 2 strip sacks, and this was a guy who was benched really for Drake Thomas. And now that Ernest Jones is hurt out for a bit, at least for this game, Tyrese Knight got a starting chance alongside Thomas. Took full advantage. 4 catches allowed for just 18 yards in coverage as well, with a Cardinals team that was throwing the ball every play in the second half. Tyrese Knight, big redemption game for him, kind of like Quincy Williams with the Jets, a guy who had gotten benched, got an opportunity, took full advantage of it.
You were talking about just the first half pass rush and everything. I'll package that into my most impressive, which is Clint Kubiak, who we talked about a little bit when we were talking about the Giants, a potential head coaching candidate just because of how well he is coaching. I think that he is assistant coach of the year with how well he is coaching right now. Specifically, it's not just throughout the game with this guy, but it's how dominant the Seahawks have been right out of the gate this season. 90.3 offensive grade in first quarters this season. It's first in the NFL. 0.308 EPA per play in first quarters this season. That is first in the NFL. So obviously you have the scripted drives that you go into the game with. These are the first drives that you have. But normally in the first quarter, you at least have 2 drives. Sometimes you have 3 drives, and sometimes it's like 2.5, whatever. So you're getting past those scripted plays. And yet Clint Kubiak is, he not only has the scripted drives right off the bat, he goes, okay, here's a scripted drive. This is how they're going to counter it. This is how I'm going to counter it. This is how they're going to counter that. This is how I'm going to counter that. And it seems like throughout the first half of games, Clint Kubiak just knows exactly what's going on. And it's fully practiced, it's fully rehearsed, or at least it certainly seems like it with the confidence that the Seattle Seahawks offense plays with. So that is my most impressive there. The stat that told the story to me sort of goes along to that and just gives more evidence and numbers to it. The first drive that Seattle had, 7 plays, 65 yards, touchdown. The next drive that they had, 9 plays, 66 yards, touchdown. The third drive that they had, 6 plays, 79 yards, touchdown. Dalton, you know what happened in between those drives? 1 and 2, 2 and 3?
The 2 strip sacks?
2 DeMarcus Lawrence touchdowns.
That'll do.
We're 3 drives into this game on offense, 35-0. Game's over. Done. Pack it up. Go home. Play for next week. Like, that's how dominant this team was. And we don't have to say too much other than that. I mean, like, it just, I wonder how different this game might have been with Will Johnson in here to just compete with Jackson Smith-Njigba a little bit. But outside of that, man, I mean, Seattle just did whatever they wanted in this game.
Yep. It was over very quickly, and it makes for a quick review of it. I mean, look, you've got Sam Darnold, who, to your point about, I think a big thing is that they take deep shots early in the game too,
yes.
right? I mean,
yes.
And
Confidently.
Sam Darnold's second in the NFL in average depth of target behind J.J. McCarthy. I mean, this has just been a theme, is they just find a way to take home run shots early in games, and they're all calculated. It's not forced by you. Watch this team take these shots. It's never forced. It's calculated. It's Jackson Smith-Njigba in the right matchup. They've got, this week they didn't have Torrey Horton, but he's a speedster. They got Rashid Shaheed, another speedster. I mean, they just have so many options in this offense now that as long as they pass protect well enough, this is going to continue to happen. But it's going to be the fun part of next week's game against the Rams, is them going up front against that defensive line. And Sam Darnold, remember, 0-2 against the Rams last year.
I cannot wait for that game. We'll talk about the Rams here in a second, actually, is this next game. My most disappointing, I know that you have this as well, the Cardinals' interior offensive line. It was, their offensive line as a whole, sort of the same conversation that I was having with the Cleveland Browns. I can't believe that these two teams went into this year and were just like, nah, we're good. No, all right. The Cardinals didn't draft an offensive lineman until the 6th round.
You've got Paris Johnson and a whole lot of semi-passable.
And I don't mean to necessarily single him out. I thought that Evan Brown was the most disappointing in this game. He had a 31.6 defeated run blocking percentage, but then in pass blocking as well, 27.9 pass blocking grade, 6 pressures allowed, 10.5% pressure percentage. And I went back and I watched some of these plays, and he just, again, I'm not trying to pile on, because I do think it's a sort of a representation of the rest of the offensive line as well. But you watch him against Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy specifically as the interior guys for Seattle. He can't hang with those guys. They're too athletic, they're too strong, and those are 2 really good NFL players. I want to be very clear, but that's sort of the thing with really offensive line in general is, I understand that it's a unit where you can sort of raise the potential or the floor of the guys around you because it's 5 guys playing as one. I get that. But you've got to be able to have players that you have confidence to be able to handle the best in the NFL. And if you don't, that kind of is my point about the draft stuff, is if you don't have that, in my opinion, you have to search for it. You have to try. And there are too many teams this offseason where, whether it was just because they felt like they're paying these guys contracts or whatever it was, they sort of went into this season, they were like, nah, we're good. We'll be all right with the guys we have. And unfortunately, Arizona was one of those teams where I looked at it and I went, I think they could be okay, but how much better than okay, and how much lower than okay? And that's the part that I was worried about that seems to have manifested this year.
Your team needs, when you get to the offseason and start doing that for the draft for this team, are going to be very, very one spot is, I guess, to be determined, as being negotiated. But it sure looks like it's going to be, to me, I look at them and I go, quarterback, running back, number 2 wide receiver.
Well, running back, Connor and Trey Benson.
I mean, Connor's going to be 30 and coming off an injury. He is 30 now and coming off an injury.
I hear what you're saying. I think they'll be all right with Benson.
That's, maybe running back isn't the top one, but
yeah.
Quarterback, a wide receiver,
line.
a wide receiver 2, an offensive line,
and no Michael Wilson slander.
A wide receiver 2, and then some offensive line, and
a wide receiver 3. I agree.
And then help at linebacker too. Cody Simon's actually been pretty good the last couple weeks, but more help at linebacker. That's the one level of the defense that concerns me. But no, I mean, it's it's going to be a kind of it's starting to look like a rebuilding project. Aside from Paris Johnson, Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison, they got to find some foundational players on offense, and especially quarterback and offensive line start to look like a real issue here in Arizona.
Yeah. And not that those will be the only three that you'll lean on, but
the three big ones.
they're the cornerstones for sure. Yeah.